everyone. You're watching another episode of the CareMinds podcast. I'm your host, Daniel. Today, I'm talking to Ran Shaul, Chief Product Officer and co founder of K Health and Hydrogen Health. In today's episode, together with Ran, we're exploring topics of creating a completely new virtual care AI powered experience for the end patient, the importance of AI and data when it comes to decision making, entrepreneurship, and life, and Rand's outlook on the role of product manager in today's health tech. Let's get started. Rand, thank you very much for being a part of this Care Minds podcast episode. It's great to have you here.
Thank you. It's very good to be here. Thank you.
Can you please touch base shortly on your background?
I started my career quite late. I did 5 years in the Israeli army. I was platoon commander, and when I went to school, I did industrial engineer in the Technion in Israel, and very quickly realized that I'm actually very passionate with data science and computer science. So I eventually graduated my bachelor degree in engineering, industrial engineering, and computer science. And I enter my career from the ability to really understand how to apply data to solve complicated problems. That's really the theme of everything I'm passionate about. I don't know why I'm attracted to the concept of using mathematics to solve business problem, but that's really where I started. Obviously, in the beginning, I knew nothing, but I started my first business very early. Like I only had like 3 or 4 years of experience working in a company. That company was the early day of data warehouses. Everybody remembers that. Like we were just trying to stitch data together from large databases and putting on local machine. The cloud was not even a thing back then. So we had servers and we had to put data and we had to run SQLs, and that's how I started. But I started my first company realizing that I also want to be an entrepreneur. It's not something against working for someone else, but I always wanted to create, and I wanted to have a freedom to create and the ability to start something from zero and all of a sudden have a company and that has a culture and is living and breathing is a fascinating, stressful, but a very fascinating. I highly recommend it for everyone who want to try it at least once in his lifetime. Very quickly, I realized that data science is going to be a big thing. We started enter data mining and natural language processing. I started 3 companies. K Health is my third company. The 2 other were either acquired or sold by others, and eventually K became K Health, which is the company I'm working and I founded 6.5 years ago, becomes my kind of my highlight. This is where I feel like I matured enough to, from the entrepreneur perspective and also from the domain perspective. And I took a big project with my co-founder, Alon Bloch, which is also a serial entrepreneur, and we wanted to tackle a very big problem. The problem we wanted to do is not necessarily using data to, like in other companies, using data to make people buy more. I spent a lot of time in the advertising technology. I felt like I can do something more mission driven, purpose driven.
Okay.
And both of me and my co-founder has a personal story with healthcare. We both lost parents, and we both think that potentially we could have done better and not necessarily lose a parent. And we wanted to tackle medicine. It actually started with the idea that we can empower people to make better decisions. And like anything in the internet you see now, why would medicine will be as easy as that? Like when you want to book a flight or you want to go on a date or you want to dine in a restaurant, you just go to the internet and figure out everything there. And in medicine, that was not available. 6 years ago, you could go to Dr. Google and WebMD, but you would not probably get an accurate or sometimes even very inaccurate information. So we just said, is it possible that everybody who has a headache goes to Dr. Google and get a result of a brain tumor? It doesn't make any sense. Not everybody who wakes up in a headache because he drank too much or whatever did last night has a brain tumor. And once I started study medicine books, I realized this is an algorithm. What physicians do in diagnosis, they basically apply a lot of statistics in order to understand what that headache is. So we decided to take a very novel approach to that, and we wanted to build a computer system that understand medicine. We actually put a big high bar. We said, hey, can we train an algorithm to practice medicine? So we've been doing it for a while. Now with the chat GPTs and all of those tools, now people understand that AI is not that scary, or they can interact with it. And it's very helpful because now we have a product that you can download from the App Store in any given time. And you go through a chatbot similar to like you would do in ChatGPT and tools like that, but you will also get a very personalized experience. And Care Health is trained to work similar to ChatGPT, but it will also ask you questions. So very different from putting a prompt into it and getting an answer, which is what we experience. That chatbot is actually going to ask you questions back. So it's not just you telling, hey, I have a headache, is K are going to ask you, when did it start? That's a very important question. Is it a headache that's been going for a while, or is it something that? How strong is it? Where is it in your head? What other symptoms are you experiencing? And that experience is a delightful experience that eventually will land you in the ability to better understand what you have based on people like you. And everybody knows that they're not patient zero. You're not the first person who actually have a headache, and we can compare you to many other people, and that by comparison you can learn about what to do with it. The real theme here is that we have taking a data mining, data approach to figure out how to basically allow people to access to highly accurate information. And this has become a very successful company now. On top of that experience, we built an entire online medical practice. So you can do everything you can do with an in-person doctor on our app. So you now realize that this could be a migraine, and you can get in front of a physician 24/7 in all 48 states, and you can get a prescription in the next 15 minutes. So that's really the theme of the career, is getting to the point that we can use data to change, to drive better decision, both for patient and physicians.
Yeah, very interesting, Ren. This is a fairly ambiguous task to provide the same level of services that people expect when they visit the doctor, completely virtual. And of course, there's been time since COVID where everybody got online, and there was a high demand for this type of service. Still, there is room for improvement, even when it comes to the real world interactions. So, how do you specifically design that value proposition that translated well through the realm of virtual care?
Yeah, that's a great question to also emphasize. KEalth is an AI company. Is it a virtual company? Is it a doctor clinic? It's actually all the above. So, two things to remember. When people go to the doctor, they almost have no expectation because the experience is so terrible. They know they're going to wait. They know they're probably going to be late. They know the meeting is going to be brief. They know that they will not have enough time to explain everything. They know that the doctor is going to look very busy. They know that they're going to have some very high charge after. They're worried about what the insurance will send them after. So I would not think about K-Health experience necessarily as virtual in-person comparison, more on how you take all of that headache out of the process. So
Mhm.
when you go on your own terms 24/7, that's a big deal now. All of a sudden you can see a doctor at 9 p.m. at night because you had a busy day and your kids and all the things that went there, you got to 9 p.m. at night, you can do that. Your wait time is as expected. In 15 minutes, you go in front of a physician. But mostly important is that you have high quality visit with the physician because you have spent time discussing all your symptoms and all your condition with our AI. You have basically been able to express all your symptoms. Our physician, when they enter the room, our system, our AI system, have been handed to them a pre-populated chart that you can basically understand the entire situation of your patient very quickly. You have the ability to have different modalities. You can discuss in video, you can have a text-based consultation, and also your visit not necessarily need to end. When we consider visit, we are thinking more like a week that you can keep coming back to the physician and ask questions about your consultation. It's not just you walked in and you walked out and now you have to start again. You just come back to the app and says, "Hey doctor, you told me something about it yesterday. I'm still not feeling exactly well. I started my medication and I have more questions for you." And you continue from that point you left, giving you the ability to have longitudinal relationship as opposed to a very transactional relationship. So if you sum up all of that and you have people using that, all of a sudden the brick and mortar traditional visit looks like subpar compared to how we want to be able to interact with our healthcare system in the future.
It seems from this description that combines K Health and Hydrogen's virtual primary care solution is a pretty innovative combination. And my question would be, since you are in charge of designing that particular experience, and actually users are in full control of how they want this experience to be provided to them, how do you balance this innovation aspect with the regulation as well? People are sharing their information with the bot. Usage of AI for the summary, I think, is a killer feature. This is a pretty interesting thing. So how do you go about the balance between the innovation while still being perceived as a well-designed product on the market that is not too far-fetched?
I feel like we are very conservative. We are not adopting the usual tech approach of move fast and break things. I don't think this is applicable for healthcare, and we are seeing now the unfortunate situation and the outcome of those. So we will slow. We will walk slow. We will walk safe. We will work within the boundaries of regulation. We will never stretch that. And I have to tell you, regulation is crystal clear, but there is a lot of gray areas in healthcare. For example, many companies, not like us, decided to take a bit more forward approach and prescribing online medication that could be addictive. You're standing aside, you're looking at these companies, people obviously want that. You're saying, okay, I'm giving people what they want. But from a medical perspective, we felt that it's an inappropriate thing to do. You cannot guarantee high quality necessarily, and we decided not to do it. So restricting your service to areas that you believe that are safe, high quality, is always what was my guideline. What can you do virtually? Fortunately, our physicians are feeling comfortable in doing a very wide range of services to patients virtually, but not all. And that is where the medical group will make a decision. I, as an entrepreneur, have no judgment whatsoever in the medical decisioning, and we will follow those. So I told my investors, and I think we need to be in healthcare, we need to be thinking about the long-term outcome of a patient as opposed to starting where we can grow as fast as possible. And that's kind of the guiding principle. Healthcare, technology, digital health, I think, are all awakening to that. And we are fortunately stay out of all of those cases that you heard about them, probably around healthcare and digital care and all of that stuff.
Very good observation, and I couldn't agree more. Talking about the intricacies of the design, what are the challenges of building such a flow that not many people have replicated? You see lots of data from the cases that are out there on the market. People can kind of follow footsteps, but here you need to rely on data, but also trust your gut a little bit. So what was your experience kind of like being in charge of designing that direction?
The one by far was, it's okay to be an AI company. It's okay to be a clinical virtual clinic, but being both connecting both was the biggest challenge. And sometimes I'm jealous about those AI companies that just develop an algorithm and then they give you an API and then go do whatever you want to do with the API. That's your problem. And I'm just jealous, you just do mathematics. Sometimes I'm jealous about those companies that are like, I'm just going to give you a doctor on a box and you're going to do a Zoom call and let's call it healthcare. But nothing really changed if you don't combine those together. That was the biggest challenge about how to apply AI safely for the benefit of physicians and the benefit of patients, but integrated in a clinical care environment and have it useful for both sides of the equation and have it enough accurate and have it to learn over time and have it in ability that people can understand. So some people tell me, Ran, how did you build such an accurate machine? It knows everything about primary care condition. It can diagnose people. And I say, the question is not just how we build it, but how do we explain that to our patients? And how did we make them understand what the result actually mean? And how did we hand those results to the physician? And how did we continue their experience in such a way that when they have discussed with the AI, the physician has the ability to take over and make the actual medical decisioning for them. So that was the kind of the challenge one that we wanted to interact, and everything in the end of the day, people need to like to work and to use the product and they need to be satisfied. So that was kind of like art and science combination of different domains. I am always proud about a meeting at K. You will have 5 different domains sitting in the same room. By domain, I mean you will have a physician, you will have an engineer, you will have a mathematician, you will have a kind of healthcare person that knows the regulatory aspect and all of the operational aspect, and you will have a product design person. So you're bringing complete 5 different occupation of life into one room, trying to create an experience, having that, realizing that that domain match takes time to people to understand all of the other aspects, and gluing all together to one coherent experience will be kind of challenge number one. I'm happy about this challenge because it's, like I said, the point of entry to throw out another algorithm for someone else to use, that's great. But to build an algorithm that your own 150 physician will like and want to use, that's a different conversation. The second part was how to build an algorithm that is accurate. We can talk all day long about large language model that we're using or everything that got to do with how you get the data. I think more and more people are going to realize now foundation models, using algorithms, using large language models, doing chat GPTs, all of those things are important, but eventually the trick around everything I learned around that was to build a very scalable reinforcement learning model. It does not matter what the first model. In first model, the first iteration could be on the border of stupidity. But if you train the model first enough and you bring the model reinforcement learning by telling the model you were wrong, you were right, you were wrong, you were right all the time in such a way that model over time will learn, you will get the results you will need to get. And that's kind of like the second part I wanted to mention is that while building our AI, we're experiencing our AI, our physicians are allowing our AI to learn from them. And that's create a constant loop of, hey, this person came with a headache. I'm the AI. I think this is a migraine. This person goes to a consultation with a physician. The consultation in the physician said, yo, you were wrong. It's not a migraine. It's just a tension headache. That constant loop, doing at scale thousands of times every day, is what create the ability to improve the algorithms over time. So those two things to me were the thing that I really wanted to master in K, which is having this multiple domain people sitting in a room and creating together and having this ability to have a machine that is constantly learning from humans is really where I feel like we made a big difference in K and overcome those challenges.
Right, awesome points. I wanted to ask you so much follow-up questions, but let's just continue with how do you define product success at your organization?
I'm just very biased here. I feel like usage is king. First and foremost, are people using the product? And this is before revenue models, before business models. And I have many types of user. I have consumer users, I have physician users, I have care team users. We have different stakeholders, physician organization, insurance company. Everybody needs to be happy about usage. And if you have people using the product and come back for more, that is when you know you have a good product in the market. The second thing you need to worry about is the product market fit. It could be that many people are using your product, but you still haven't found the right business model that will be balanced, that physicians are going to be happy, patients are going to be happy, and you as a company will be able to make your revenues and your profit targets. And that's something that requires iteration. And if you just think that you're going to do it in the first guess, lucky, maybe. Sometimes people throw out something there and it starts to monetize. But for us, it took a couple of iterations to understand how should we build a business model on top of the extremely usefulness of the product. And that's something that I think people need to understand. Most likely you will fail. Most likely you may fail twice. Don't get this in gear. Don't be, I tried once, it didn't work. Don't be like that. Understand that this is a learning process. In entrepreneurship, finding product market fit is the holy grail. Once you have a good product, and this is only based that the product already passed the first stage and people want to use it, and it's a useful product, finding the product market fit could take some time. And it could be able that you need to mature and you need to understand how to apply your product better. And it could be that there's more things that you didn't think about building the first MVP that you need. And I think people need to enjoy that. Actually, that kind of think I've seen a lot of entrepreneurs are building a product, it's useful enough, and now they're like chasing the revenues. Like, yeah, it's important now in the economy now, and investors are gonna pressure you to show the results and stuff like that. But we need to enjoy that product market fit. That's where the magic happens. All of a sudden, your product is solving a big problem, and you're able to monetize that. Those are very important points for entrepreneur leadership.
Talking about the importance of the team working cohesively, different representatives of each different domains working together, not working in silos. I wanted to ask you, how do you view that role, and how do you define what would be like a perfect fitting candidate for that role for you personally?
In our business, product management is probably the toughest job here. Eventually, somebody needs to connect the dots. Somebody needs to sit in that room, hear all the argument from all sides, and eventually stitch together. And it's complicated because product management are not medicine well. They definitely not coming and understanding the whole regulatory aspects of their decision. They know product design, but all of a sudden you have to combine data scientist decision and accuracy of algorithm with the ability to provide high quality clinical care. And both domains you actually don't know. You've never been a data scientist and you're definitely not a physician. So that product management role becomes complicated. I look at people as in two dimensions. I think one will be curiosity and wants to learn. And you would be surprised, but a lot of people just prefer to do what they know. They just like, they build an e commerce company, the company was selling X, and now the company has a different product, they're selling Y. It does not matter too much. You have the basics of user funnel of e-commerce. And let's do it again and again and again. The job requires here, you need to learn those domains up to a point. But you do need to understand the consideration of a physician, the consideration of an algorithm, and you need to combine those. And that requires for you to spend time learning, reading, understanding beyond what you know. And the second dimension I would like, so if curiosity and eagerness to learn, I don't know how to put it in the right way, but some people are just having very hard time making decisions, and trade-offs are important. You are not going to get perfect. You are not going to get exactly. What is the MVP in every aspect? What is the minimal viable? And that's what you need to execute. And you do it in an agile way. And every time you make another small progress, and every time you add another thing. I think I heard that from many other. It's like when you look at K is not like one or two decisions, it's thousands of small micro decisions that are building the big pictures eventually and giving you the ability to see a cohesive product. And that's trade-off. Combination with curiosity will get you be a very strong product manager or product owner in K.
Yeah, definitely the prioritization aspect and understanding what is the right thing for the company is extremely, extremely important. How do you correlate that to your like current style of leadership? How did it change throughout the years? And most important, this may be a controversial one. At this particular stage of your journey, is it important for you to be right or to be successful with K?
I had to work a lot on myself here. I'm a very opinionated person. I'm passionate about everything I do. I find myself, in a very deep areas of the product and very detailed. I needed to, your point, make the company successful more than make myself right. So that's a process. It wasn't as bad in the beginning when we started. We were a small group. The first year, as an entrepreneur, you kind of everything. You do whatever needs to be done. You write a blog post, you create a design, you work in Figma, you work with the engineers. It doesn't really matter. But when we grew, especially in the early days during COVID, we moved from this 50 people company to 300 people company. That is where I mostly needed to align myself to work in a leadership manner, to provide more vision. I usually use a technique instead of trying to say what I want, is I trying to use like what I think is more like hinting to what I want and let people discover it themselves. Working in a big setting, I always feel like if you go into a room in a very large meeting, you also need to, I'm trying to avoid it as much as possible. But if you have, 10, 15 people in meeting, you just become more like a visionary person instead of like, hey, let's do this, let's do that. And then the most important part is like, we now build a very strong leadership layer, and that gives me the ability to impact mostly. And we have 6 or 7 strong leaders in the company in different domains that has now have enough ability to execute. And I focus on creating alignment with that group mostly. That would be the way to go, and then it cascade down. And you can work with the leaders, and your biggest impact is with those leaders. There's hardly any more chance in a company that size to go and impact all the way. I do reserve the right, and that's something that I want to, maybe I'm a little bit controversial here, but I actually do like to go to the plant and see the code, see the algo, see the design. I need to do it in a way that is consultative and not authoritative, because when you all of a sudden you're sitting with the co-founder and you're like an engineer or an algorithmic, you're building a model, and all of a sudden the founder is next to you and he's saying stuff, you may think that's what you need to do. So I need to be careful about that, but keeping a very strong leadership team at the top and making sure that they equipped for the execution and have the way to do it and the will. And then sometimes sample the lowest level possible and get your hand dirty. I think it's also complementing each other and leading by example.
Great points. And I wanted to sum up with a question. How often do product managers have influence on the vision, be it through the data that they've gathered? They've validated some concept, and maybe there is like a point where it doesn't necessarily no longer fit the original vision. They need to bring this up. Where do they stand in this vertical of the decision making and influence on the product, in your opinion?
When you have a product out there, it's all data driven decision by the product manager. Like who knows? Like, should I put feature A, feature B? Let's do A/B testing. Let's see what works more. I can be right, you can be right. A product manager needs to kind of ignore the noise and follow the data. And but that's the task when you actually have a running product with user data. What happens when you don't and you want to start a completely new feature, or you want to start a company? You may do surveys and stuff like that. I actually feel that consumers are not as good as giving feedback for product that doesn't exist. Like it's hard for consumer to imagine new thing. They're good in using it, but I'm not sure. I don't know if we were asked the user, would you want to interact with a prompt AI system that will give you answers better than search? My guessing will be most of this. No, I have Google. Why do I need that? Like that's probably what you would hear. So that is where product manager needs to, I don't know how to say it, gut feeling. They need to have a belief. They need to have a vision. They need to be able to basically say no to the naysayers and say, no, actually, I think we are reinventing something here and people would like to use it. And that is where actually a lot of the interesting stuff happen, and building something from scratch and putting a completely new feature that nobody used. We didn't know in K if people will like to go to a one screen that will show them a differential diagnosis. And people say, are you crazy? No one would want to do this. People want to go to the doctors. Like people are going to get confused. They're not going to know what you mean. Again, eventually we put that screens and we iterate around it. And that's became the aha moment in K. And people will spend 4 minutes answering questions, 4 minutes answering questions to K just because they want to know what K think about their condition. And initially people told me, there's no way people are going to spend 4 minutes with you. People are like have 2 seconds in their life. They will not want to spend any time giving you all of this information. Here we are. 10 million people have used it in the US. 10 million people have given us information, most intimate information about their healthcare because they want to know what K has to say about their condition. So that's kind of like the toughest part of the product manager, is to break away beyond the nose and follow your dreams and build something that people would like and then put it in their hands and hopefully they will do.
I very much like and resonate with the last point that you've brought up, that rules are rules. Sometimes they're just guidelines, and you need to, in some cases, see past that and invent new things and or rethink the existing order of things, which is a creative and an unusual thing. Ran, thank you very much for this episode. It's been super insightful. Your points were very interesting, very incredible. Any other words that you want to sum this up with?
You have a good idea, just go ahead and do it. Just try to do it. There's a lot of people are just going to say, yeah, but get your experience, work in a big company, work in other companies. But if you have a good idea, just go ahead and do it. Entrepreneurship and leadership and entrepreneurship is not for everyone, but if you like that excitement and you want to pursue something, just go ahead and do it.
We'll leave it at there. I was your host, Daniel. This was Ran Shaul, K Health. Ran's LinkedIn would be in the description below in case someone wants to reach out network. Thank you, Ran. It was a pleasure. Until next time. Thank you. You've been watching another episode of the CareMinds podcast. Hit the like if you like this episode and drop us a comment below. We'd be excited to hear which topic in health tech, product management realm we should cover next. Please consider subscribing and hitting the bell notification. This helps the channel to produce more content like this. See you soon at CareMinds.